Living life aesthetically. Um, I was lucky enough to work with this artist. This is Lucia Tukhachevsky. She was born in 1931. She died in 2000. Uh, American composer. She was rebellious, and she really rebelled against formulaic music that just followed sort of patterns that all music follows. And she really strived to do something else. She also strived to live her life from one aesthetic experience to the other. And she felt like her art really needed to arise out of these aesthetic experiences. So these are great. These two images here of Lucia. She would be very angry at me if I only showed pictures of her late in life. So this is an early picture of her in her life. And here's the last picture ever taken. I took this picture at a rehearsal. She had, it was Eric Hawkins' wife. It was his second wife. You know, he married Martha Graham. He divorced Martha Graham, then he married Lucia. So he met her about 2 years after he left Martha Graham. And they began working together in 1952, and she completely transformed his sense of choreography. And she challenged him in ways that made him move away from the ways he had been choreographing and he had learned to choreograph and the choreography that he had learned from Martha Graham, and he became his poetic self. Lucia was amazing as an artist. She was also quite connected to the abstract expressionists in New York City. So she was friends with all of them. She hung out at the Cedar Bar, which was just north of Soho, kind of in the area of town that's now really NYU. She was there, and that bar is now long long gone, but it was just a place. Her music was supported by the abstract expressionists. They gave her her first concert, and so they cared about her, and they thought what she was doing was amazing. Now, Lucia was an experimental composer. So we'll play some examples of her music here in a moment. But a friend of hers invited her. I love to tell this story because it sort of points to her process and this idea of living life in an aesthetic way and letting the aesthetics of the things around you create the world of your work. So a friend of Lucia's invited her to his farm in Vermont, and Lucia felt, this was great opportunity. She could leave New York, she could find a quiet place, she could compose her music. And she set about sort of wandering the farm, picking up things, beautiful things, flowers, leaves, bird feathers. And what she did was she put these things together on a score. She liked to work in what was called a China marker. And a China marker comes in various colors, and I'll show you a picture of it. It's got a little string that you can unravel the string, and then you can unravel the color wax crayon. China markers are great if you want to write on things that are shiny like glass, because it's a wax kind of crayon. But you can buy them at the art store, so they're kind of great. But she used them with all of these things to create this score of these kind of fantastical leaves and natural objects that she picked up. She also loved haiku poetry, Japanese poetry, and she would put small drawings and she'd paste all of these things. What she was after is she wanted to find, what did the music feel like? So before she got to the music, she wanted to find the world of the music. What was this music going to feel like on the inside? And I love this story because one day the friend who owned the farm came and said to Lucia, he looked at her scores. He said, they're beautiful, but there's something that I really expected to be here that's not here. And you probably know the answer to it. It's the notes. Where are the musical notes? Because most of the time when we think about, oh, I'm writing music, what's written are just a bunch of notes on the staff. And Lucia said, well, I don't want to do that, because that's what most composers get caught up in. Is they get caught up in just writing all the notes, and they write the notes that they always see, and where they always see it in the relationships that are always seen. So what she said is, I'm looking for something different. I'm looking for something unique, and I'm looking for something poetic in all of this. And she said, and after that, the notes will come, and the notes will be the last thing that comes. And when we listen to her music, you hear work that's uniquely strange and uniquely beautiful and uniquely interesting. Let's listen to a couple short clips of pieces of music. Now, I brought Lucia to the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and she taught composition classes. Uh, she was really great because we could bring down musicians in the composition department who really desperately wanted to meet her and say that they worked and been around her. And she also taught composition for dancers. So she taught choreography, and she would teach you meter studies and matra studies and dynamic studies. So she would really work with students with their choreographic stuff. Now, one time after class, she was going to give a lecture at 7 p.m. and we were doing a morning and afternoon, early afternoon workshop. So I took her home after the workshop and said, well, I'll come pick you up. I'll be there at 6:30 to pick you up. Then we'll go back to school. Then you can do your lecture at 7 p.m. Now, Lucia was, everyone always says Lucia was an artist. So time meant nothing to her. She lived on her own sense of time sometimes. And she could frustrate you because she was an artist in that way. When I got home at 6:30, of course, Lucia had overslept, and I woke her up and I said, there's a lecture at 7, so you should get ready and we should go. And she said, well, give me some time. I have to do my makeup. I have to take a shower. I want to look really good for the lecture. So it was just, suddenly, it was 7 o'clock and we were finally driving, maybe 7:05, and we're driving. I'm speeding down Maryland Parkway because I'm trying to get her to the lecture. And she said something to me that stuck with me to this day, because I was so frustrated with the situation of just like meeting the requirements of life. She said, it was dusk. She said, if you look at the street lights, yellow is so beautiful at dusk. It has a special glow about it. And, I had been so frustrated that I don't even know that I was looking at street lights. I was just trying to figure out how can we get there so quickly and get this lecture started. But that always stuck to me this day, because she's right. That the color yellow at dusk is just glorious. And I think that's why we like sunsets so much, is because those yellow and orange colors just vibrate at that time of day in just a beautiful sensory way. So her comments made me look at yellow differently, and also reminded me that we can, in our day-to-day, get so caught up with what I have to get done that we might miss the things that are most important and most worth paying attention to at those times. So she's taught me so much about that. And again, now I try to balance my sense of what needs to get done with also my sense of the aesthetic, living life aesthetically from day to day. Her music is really otherworldly. For me, her work is like a Japanese garden, that there's a landscape of sounds that come and collide together. They create a topography of a landscape so that you just see the various forms and all of these. She loved the word timbre, because timbre was the part of an instrument that gives it its life. And that's how we know that a flute is a woodwind and has a wind sound, and a piano has a kind of percussive sound of the hammer hitting the string, and those things are very, very different. Yeah. Lucia felt like her music should shake us up, not put us to sleep. So she wanted us to pay more attention rather than less and move away from it. And she wanted these sounds colliding together to produce a kind of poetry that demanded us to listen to it. Now, many of us would say after an aesthetic experience, we're far better. That somehow it has gotten into us, and it has done what we want art to do. That it's moved us, that it's changed us, that it's transported us, that it's somehow brought us closer to the things in life that are the most important things to pay attention to. It's taken us away from our ordinary life and lifted us into that world of creative exaltation. Yeah. I've used that idea that art is a strange tool, and that each work of art can do that for us. And if we look at a snow globe, this is an empty snow globe just filled with snow, that you can think that this could be anything in this world. And when we shake, what art does for us is it shakes it up. It creates a world of kind of infinite possibilities. And then when it all settles down, we can be different. The world of what we see within here can somehow be a different thing. And for me, nothing greater than that.